going to get these powers in the tactics tree: Bunker Buster, Gauss Grenade, Battle Display, CryoFoam. Most of your power points are in this tree, so you get the specialized bonus of 5% critical attack damage. And then in the devices tree, you get Distract, EMP, and Stasis. And of course you get Intimidation just so you can go further into the tree. And you don't get this specialized bonus because most of your power points are in the other tree. In the Iconics, you're just going to get the damage innates. You also want to mod everything towards might. And with the home turf mods, you want max damage. It doesn't matter what you put on your feet. With the chest, you want core strength. With the neck, you want escalating might. And then with your weapon, you want blast adapter. This loadout will net you the most damage in single target scenarios than any other powers that you use in the Gadget's power set. I want to emphasize what single target is. It's when you and the other DPSs, because that part's important too, when everyone is focusing on the same boss. There's nothing else there. If there's another NPC, if there's 2 targets and more that you can target and DPS, you're going to lose damage just because of the fact that you're carrying Stasis Field. But if it's just one boss, like Prison Break Elite or Prison Break Regular when you're fighting Dr. Light, or in survival mode when you're fighting bosses, but there's 2 bosses, but sometimes people will split them up. If you're all DPSing the same target, you're all registering single target damage. And this is where you begin to net more damage using these specific powers of CryoFoam and Stasis Field. I want to mention Fear Gas really quick because some players seem to dismiss loadouts that don't have Fear Gas. Using Fear Gas does not significantly increase your speed when you compare that to other powers. You jump cancel Fear Gas, it's going to last 0.8 seconds. All powers have a standard duration of 1 second. So if you jump cancel and it takes you 0.8 seconds as opposed to you just hitting another power and it costs you 1 second, there is literally no significant increase in damage per second. That's damage and timing when you use Fear Gas over any other ability that lasts 1 second. It's not there. Some players just go by what they see, thinking that just because the animation is ended that you have been sped up, or that if you clip something that has sped you up. Self buffs, you clip them and then it's just like they still last 1 second. Self buffs and offensive powers will last 1 second. All you did was just cast another ability within that 1 second. And this is the same scenario with Fear Gas. You are not significantly increasing your actual speed. That's not what's going on. You can verify all this information by either timing it yourself or looking at the Game Update 36 patch notes on the DCUO forums. I'm not trying to dismiss Fear Gas. It's actually really good power on 2 or more targets, but realistically, like all the other powers, there's a strength and a weakness to it. EMP is going to net 80% of your damage, of your total damage when you do 3 PIs EMP, Distract EMP. That's just where a bulk comes from. The other powers that you use, Gauss, Foam, Fear, Vortex, Stasis, whatever it is, that will vary. Those burst powers will do about 3%. Foam will register more because of the burning DOT that's registered under its name, and then the remaining is just will vary from 4 to 3 to 7%. I want to get into something specific here that's also important as to why Foam and Stasis is important compared to something like Fear Gas in practical use. If you look at the rotation that I'm playing, you'll see that Distract, when it's on cooldown or when Stealth is on cooldown, I'm basically spamming 3 powers and then EMP. So pay attention to CryoFoam. The moment that I hit CryoFoam, do my powers, hit EMP, and then go back to CryoFoam, 5 seconds would have passed. So within those 5 seconds, all the damage that's being registered by DOTs that can do 6, 8, 4 ticks of damage, whatever the amount is, over 5 seconds, that damage is being cut off. What happens here is that CryoFoam and Stasis Field deliver 8 ticks of damage. But like I said, within 5 seconds they'll register 5 ticks, and that includes an initial hit from both. If I'm losing you, just you can always look at my Gadget thread for the actual ticks and all this information. I'll also put something in the description. But just to quickly get into it, within 5 seconds, only a certain amount of damage is going to register from both CryoFoam and Stasis Field. But once you go into Distract EMP or Stealth and then hit whatever power and then EMP, those 8 ticks, you're no longer getting 5 ticks from Foam and Stasis Field. Now you're starting to get into the 6th tick or the 7th tick if you use Stealth as well. So you begin to register more damage, and that brings up the average of these powers compared to something like Fear Gas. And I'm going to get into that just now. I'm going to give simplified numbers, basically numbers at 0 might, just so you get an idea of the type of damage that I'm talking about. First, with Fear Gas, like I said earlier, if you jump cancel it, you'll do about 8 ticks of damage with plus explosive damage, and this is all registered under 5 seconds. And the average for Fear Gas is 57.5. That's how much damage that you're doing with it. So basically like 57. With burst powers, and here I'm using Gauss Grenade. Gauss Grenade is properly getting independently buffed by CryoFoam. So I don't need an ice tank or another ice player. My Gauss Grenade is always going to have the 50% PI buff. That brings the average to 54. So now you have some numbers here that to work with. Fear Gas does 57 over the course of 4.5 seconds. Gauss Grenade does 54 damage over the course of 1. And with CryoFoam and Stasis Field, this is where it begins to vary. If you, the moment that Distract and Stealth stay on cooldown for a while, your average for both Stasis Field and CryoFoam is 56 for Stasis Field and 51 for CryoFoam. That's obviously within the range of Fear Gas. So Fear Gas and Stasis are doing about the same. One is 56, one is 57 on single target. CryoFoam is doing a little bit less. It's doing 51 when it's just 3 PIs EMP and spam 3 PIs EMP while you wait for the others to get off cooldown. But this is where the numbers start to slightly increase in favor of Stasis Field and CryoFoam. And this will play a big factor if you're doing something where you have to block a lot. When you get an extra tick, and if you do 3 PIs EMP and then Distract EMP, just doing that alone, I'm not including Stasis Field where you'll get another extra tick, but just doing 3 PIs EMP and Distract and then EMP, you'll do your increase, you're going to increase your average for both Stasis and Foam. Stasis average now becomes 64 and CryoFoam's average becomes 59. So now just to recap, Fear Gas, if you use it, 57, okay? 57 is the average. For what I'm using here, Gauss is doing 54, Stasis Field is doing 64, and then CryoFoam is doing 59. And this is every time that I'm allowed to go into Distract and EMP and then Stealth and then EMP. So you're raking in slightly more damage, especially when you have to block or if you have to go pick somebody up or whatever else. It's not where if you continue the rotation or if you go into Distract or Stealth, it's not like Fear Gas is going to continue unless it's burning, but that's the same burning that CryoFoam takes advantage of. But you're not going to increase your DPS at all using Fear Gas in that situation. You actually do it with these two powers here. You might be looking at it as if, well, Fear Gas and Foam do roughly the same, and under the 3 PI spam then EMP, Fear Gas does more than Foam anyway. Well, there's a couple of things that you got to look at here. One is that 59 average on Foam is just you doing 3 PIs, 3 PIs EMP, then Distract EMP. That's not including Stealth. I don't know if I may have mixed that up earlier, but that's not including Stealth. If you use Stealth, it's going to add an extra tick, and then that brings the average up. But ultimately, it's like, if you're like me, you're seeing this as the numbers are very close, so it's like whatever. But this is the other thing that I took into consideration when I decided to make this loadout. If you have a player that's setting up Frostbite and that they're doing it consistently, then yeah, go ahead and take out CryoFoam and put in Fear Gas if you like Fear Gas. If you don't have a nice player there that's setting it up consistently, or you just don't have them there at all, no ice users, then that's when you want to use CryoFoam. And you want to use that to make sure that you are absolutely buffing every Gauss grenade. You want that 50% PI buff, and that's why you want to take advantage of your burst powers being buffed. That's why a long time ago I recommended you use Vortex Cannon over other powers aside from its damage registration, and that's because Vortex sets up its own 50% PI buff. So that's why I chose to stick with CryoFoam, to make sure that my Gauss is properly buffed, because ultimately, no matter what, under the situations where I have to block or hit Distract and then Stealth, I'm still registering an extra tick. And some players make a big fuss about damage per second, registering the most damage that you can. Well then, if that's the case, CryoFoam is going to win. Fear Gas is just the power that you would use just because you like it. But under this scenario, again, single target damage, you and just the boss and no other targets to hit, this loadout will net you the most damage on the scorecard and hitting on that NPC. I don't recommend you use this when you overgear certain content, like for trash mobs that a group as a whole can destroy in like 3 or 4 seconds. You don't want to use Fear Gas at all anyway. You want to use burst powers, and I have a burst loadout that you could use somewhere in my playlist. It's just you burst them to death, register as much damage as you can with those burst powers in 1 second, and then of course finish them off with EMP. That's essentially how you want to work that. And if you're looking for that, there's I forgot the name of the video. I think it's called 3PI combo burst, somewhere there. Just check it out. And ideally, what I recommend is that you have to go through these powers, and you have to look at which ones register what type of damage in a certain amount of time, and whether there's any environmental threats, things that can stop you from registering damage. You want to take all this into consideration, as well as your combat time. And last, in my stealth tray, I have Bunker Buster, Backflip, Thermite Mine, CryoFoam, and Sticky Bomb. Sticky Bomb is really bad on single target. If you look at the base numbers on my page, you're going to see that. CryoFoam, I just have it there just in case I have to be brought out of stealth. And then I have Thermite Mine there just in case I'm playing around. I want to put mine somewhere. They'll deal damage once the target hits it. Bunker Buster is important, and you use that as often as you can when it's available, because that will put you at the plus 5% range of the 35,500 goal for the Tunso test. It puts you right there at the 5% range, a little bit over. Sometimes if you properly buff yourself, you'll probably get over to maybe 6-7%, but most of the time it's around the 5% range that that you can reach with Bunker Buster. And then of course I have Backflip. Backflip there is not used for the damage. That I put just in case the group needs power. If the troller dies or there's a clutch situation, whatever, I just have it there for power. If you're looking to build yourself a loadout, or you're just curious on how the power set works, you're looking for base numbers, you want to see whether or not somebody's telling you something that's accurate, I definitely recommend that you look at my Gadgets thread in the DCUO forums. It's just the Gadgets guide in Oracle's database. All the information there is always updated, and it's a pretty good source, and been a pretty good source for like maybe 4 or 5